Jen Psaki's conspiracy theory claim about how the GOP or the conservative are using Muslims to fight against LGBT. It has to be one of the worst things I've ever heard. I've listened to a lot of conspiracy theory claims, and some of them are really out of this world nonsense. Some of them are believable. Some of them are questionable. Some of them are like, I'll look deeper. I'm not sure. But a lot of things that they were called conspiracy theories and stuff, turned out to be true. Like things like this one thing here. You remember that thing we were supposed to heal all our sickness? It turned out to be, they would call it conspiracy theory, lab theory, conspiracy theory. This stuff doesn't work. Conspiracy theory. Well, it turned out to be true. Well, this one here is so not true that it's not even believable.
So lately I've been noticing the reemergence of a very old GOP playbook that harkens back to President Richard Nixon's infamous Southern strategy. During his campaign for president in 1968, the Republican Party made a concerted effort to reach white Southerners who used to vote for Democrats by playing to their fears of African Americans and the civil rights movement. And it worked. By pitting one group of Americans against another, the GOP successfully managed to split off Southern whites from the Democratic Party. Now, decades later, the right wing is reviving that same playbook, this time with Muslim Americans and trans people. Hear me out here. The GOP is trying to recruit Muslim Americans, a community that makes up less than 2% of the U.S. population, against another tiny marginalized group of Americans, transgender people. It's important to remember that back in 2011, during the Republican primary, the right wing had designated Muslim Americans as public enemy number one. No surprise, given that conspiracy theorists, remember the birthers? I do, had been trying for years to portray President Obama as a Trojan horse for Sharia law. Republican after Republican candidate ginned up fear about the fabricated threat posed by an Islamic legal doctrine debated by scholars for centuries. To them, the imaginary prospect of Sharia law in this country was scarier than gun violence, climate change, and more important to discuss than, say, millions of people who didn't have health care.
I do not believe in Sharia law in American courts. I believe in American laws in American courts.
If we think that there is an undermining now, just wait. If Sharia is adopted or utilized by justices in the United States.
Accepting Sharia in the United States would be the end of our civilization as we know it. No jurisdiction will tolerate having Sharia imposed in the United States of America.
The end of our civilization as we know it, he says. Of course, there was no chance Sharia law was going to be implemented in the United States. Now, Trump's origin story is the birther movement is a part of that. But all of this also set the stage for him to make this declaration as a candidate in 2015.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
Now, fast forward 8 years, and the right wing has focused their fear-mongering on trans people.
That doesn't make any sense.
So here is Fox News giving a comment on that, and I think this is balance. I mean, Jen Psaki is out of her mind. I guess maybe this is part of viewership. This is to get attention online. Maybe sometimes it's about clicks. You know how YouTube works. Some of these people, they have to say some outlandish things and just to get views. I know where it is. I live on YouTube too, so I get it to a degree. But it's just ridiculous, though.
And 2% of the U.S. population against another tiny marginalized group of Americans, transgender people.
So it's all a Republican ploy, Kara, if I've got that right. So I thought we should hear directly from some Muslim leaders. Ismail Royer, she's the director of the Islam and Religious Freedom Action Team, says the left wants to scare Muslims into accepting its indoctrination of our children in exchange for a smile and pat on the head. They insult Muslims by portraying us as having no agency or intelligence, but can't imagine that we've weighed the bargain they offer us and rejected it. Then the head of CARE, Edward Ahmed Mitchell, instead of addressing the substance of the concerns these families have raised about what's happening in public schools, the likes of MSNBC paint these parents as dupes being used by the political right, directly from Muslim faith leaders.
Exactly. And
The left is all about projection. So it's whatever they think that the other side is doing, they're probably doing themselves. This coming from the former press secretary from one of the most divisive administrations, at least in my lifetime. I think that's pretty rich. But I also ask Jen Psaki to look at the Armenians clashing with Antifa in California. They're not Muslim. They are simply traditional parents who want to bring their children up in more traditional homes. They object to them being sexualized in the curriculum. They object to the predations of some of these teachers that, frankly, Libs of TikTok has exposed on her account on Twitter and on TikTok as well. So I think that this is people really looking at the evidence of their eyes and their ears. They are not pawns in this divisive game that, frankly, the left is very good at playing.
And all they're asking for is to opt out of the curriculum, let their child be insulated from teachings that they don't agree with or don't want them exposed to at an early age. And Kevin, I don't get how this is a made-up movement by Republicans when this has happened in Maryland. It's Canada. So Republicans are going to Canada to get the Muslims on board? I mean,
well, and this is right in Karen and I's backyard, living in Washington, D.C., just in Montgomery County. Listen, I think there needs to be a balance with anything with regards to curriculum, right? There's an important role that I think schools play with teaching age-appropriate sexual health, gender identity, sexual orientation, high schools when it's appropriate for children. But I think one of the other things to come uniquely out of the pandemic is the rise of these parents. And they certainly have a voice. And I'm a Democrat on this couch saying parents certainly have a voice. And there should be a process by which people can opt out from curriculum that they find super objectionable to their religious beliefs. And I think we've got to strike a balance without these protests in the street, without anyone getting harmed, because at the end of the day, kids have every right to a first-rate education. It's a great school district in Montgomery County, but again, it needs to be age-appropriate with that curriculum.
It should, and the demonization is going to backfire. Let's listen to a Montgomery County council member. She apologized for these comments, I want to point out, but we should bring them to you nonetheless.
This issue has unfortunately put some, and not all of course, but some Muslim families on the same side of an issue as white supremacists.
No, you did not. Listen, man, even though I don't agree with the Muslims on everything theologically, they are bold for what they believe. And I respect that about them. They don't move, they stand firm. And I'll tell you something. God is doing something with this group of people. I don't have to agree with their theology, but I'm telling you, I can see their hearts. Just saying. And they are not white supremacists. Well, you crazy? She should know better.
Side of an issue as white supremacists.
You serious?
And
on the same side?
Bigots, and there. However,
bigots.
The folks who I've talked here today, I would not put in the same category as those folks, although, it's, again, complicated because they're falling on the same side of this particular issue.
Okay, makes no sense.
So she apologized, but she's putting Muslims on the side of white supremacists. And if you remember, Jamil Hill put the Asian Americans.
And she really thought through these comments, too. She put them in a package and slammed the Muslim with the label of white supremacists because they're not agreeing with the woke agenda. Well, exactly. It's not just them. A lot of us as Christians don't agree. A lot of parents don't agree. Even some atheists don't agree. It's crazy. Yeah, I think there are very few that are agreeing. Although the white liberals, a lot of Democrats agree, and also some Satanists agree, and some people who just don't think for themselves. They just want to be left alone. It's just, but the majority of people don't agree. You know what I'm saying? It's about children. It's not even about gay rights for them. This is no, we want to protect children. All right. Your gay rights, you've already had that. We're done with that already. But anyway, you just want special rights and special privilege. We're saying no. Leave our children alone. What's the big deal? Where's the argument? Where is the bigotry here? There's no bigotry in that. There's no condemnation in that. That's just parents loving their children saying, stay away from our children because you said you're coming for them. So back off. And the Islamic faith don't play that game. Yeah, be careful be careful with the people don't play.
Muslims on the side of white supremacists. And if you remember, Jamil Hill put the Asian Americans as carrying water for white supremacists.
Well, first, don't forget, Kaylee, it started with women that we vote Republican or conservative because our husbands told us to.
Right.
So every group of people who does not agree with the Democrats are white supremacists. I get it. It doesn't matter if you're black. if you're Muslim, if you're white, if you're Asian, you're a white supremacist. Everybody's a white supremacist who do not agree with us. If you don't agree with us, you don't bow the knees to the Baal. You don't worship the woke idolatry. You don't worship the woke tree. You are a white supremacist. That is the most ridiculous remarks ever.
Right. And then remember, the New York Times talked about the rise of the white nationalist Hispanic. Yesterday, we have Jamel Hill attacking Asian
White
Americans. And now,
nationalist
of course, the Muslims community is being attacked in Maryland. So it doesn't matter what ethnic minority group you are, what gender you are, you're going to get attacked if you align with conservative policies. So, welcome. You should get used to it. And also, Kaylee, if we as a Republican Party were actually that good at master manipulation of everybody, we would be winning more races. So, I mean,
good point. Good point.
They're giving us all a little bit more credit than I think we deserve. The bottom line is that this is a free country, and that there's a lot of women who vote conservative, not because their husband tells them to, but because that's how they want their children to believe.
Simple as that.
And so there's a lot of people who have very conservative religious beliefs in this country, not just Christians. Doesn't mean they're white supremacists. It just means they believe in traditional values. Welcome to the Republican Party.
Well, Kelly, I mean, look, we can
Well said.
disagree on politics, and that's fine as adults. We can agree on how to parent children. And one of the things that the pandemic exposed was what
Exactly. This is bigger than politics for most people. I think a majority of these people, even in an Islamic faith, they don't even care about no politics. Some of these people are apolitical, but they just want you to stay far away from their children. They don't play that game. I say, same thing is for me. For me, it's bigger than politics. I don't mind having the political discussion. It's part of the thing. I can avoid it. Being a Christian, you're part of the thing. But the thing is, it's more than politics for me, bruh. It's about traditional values. It's about Christianity. It's about raising my children. It's about safety. It's about keeping their mind pure and clean away from that garbage. There's enough stuff out there. Keep your stuff away from them. But you want to call me homophobe. Listen, man, I'm afraid of a lot of things. I'm afraid of hell. I'm afraid of breaking God's heart. I'm afraid of hurting people unnecessarily. I'm afraid of doing a lot of things. But I don't have a phobia against LGBTQIA plus. Listen, I'm not afraid of gays and lesbian and transgender. I don't care. I don't care what you do in your bedroom. I don't recommend it. I will say turn and repent and believe in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Let him set you free from the bondage of sin as he's done for so many of us. But if you choose not to listen, you choose not to obey, it's not my fault. You do your thing, and I am not afraid of you.
was happening in classrooms across this country, what was being taught or not taught. And if you look now at some of the scores, in particular in states like New York, these children are very, very behind because of the lack of teaching. I'm not beating up on teachers, not beating up on parents. I'm just saying that this is a conversation that should not be politicized. Shame on Jen Psaki for politicizing something that is not, at the end of the day, political. It's about these kids.
Absolutely. And it's Hindu, Christian, Jewish, Armenian, Muslim. These aren't single issue voters, but on at least this issue, they're aligning on the side of the Republican Party.
Exactly. I mean, it's common sense, man. Good discussion, though. Jen Psaki either doesn't know what Islamic people believe. Like I mean, I don't know all their teachings, but I studied a little bit of their theory in college and everything, and I had to do some research papers on them. They don't play, man. Okay, they don't play. Again, you can read. Yes, they don't play. They tell you rejoice in their teachings, and he says, "For they are gays, such as Lot in Sodom, who God unleashed upon them his torment." One of the key scriptures, I mean, I would say passage in the Quran that they refer to a lot is what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. All right, that story is like core, and there's other conversations as well in the Quran and other teachings. They don't play that, though. Leave them alone. They are very community type of people, families and traditional values. If you go after the Islamic faith, you're losing your mind. And to say that they are white supremacists, they're being used by the conservative party, you don't know the faith. You don't understand these people. Like, you don't, listen, man, I don't agree with these people. The Islamic faith, I may not agree with them on every theological point, but I respect them. Because, listen, man, they know what, listen, they stand firm for what they believe. And I'll tell any man, I don't care about what you believe, but you better believe what you believe. Listen, man, you better believe what you believe. And that's where I stand. I think as Christian, we are so wishy-washy. We jumping left and right. And that's a shame because Jesus doesn't do that. But nevertheless, we got the Islamic faith. You're like, yo, man, they bold, brother. They bold. Now, there are some, of course. There's always some who departs from the faith and start acting up. And that's true. There are a lot of Islam in the United States that are doing that. But when you go to different parts of the world, you look at the Islamic countries, they do not change. They stick to the script. And to call that white supremacist, what you gonna do about like it's not gonna change. This is who they are. This is a website I went to the other day and I was listening, man. One Islamic production. Boy, I was listening to one of their messages. There it is right there. Transgenderism in 2008. Boy, I'm telling you, goosebumps. Goosebumps. Even though I'm not seeing here saying I'm gonna become a Muslim overnight. No, it's not gonna happen. But let me tell you something. Over 90% of what this man was saying was sound doctrine. What he was saying, even though I have my issues with the Islamic faith, I could not help but to agree. I had to go in a comment and say, you know what, man, even though I don't agree with you, brother, but I shake your hands virtually. You guys are no joke. Godly respect. God is doing something with you. Telling you, I think a time is coming. That's my thought. I don't have any scripture to back it up. I think it's time is coming when the Islamic faith and the Christian faith, they're going to shake hands. I'm telling you, I think a time is coming where we're going to lay aside our differences. We're going to shake hands because I think ultimately we worship the same God. I think our approach and perspective about the God we worship is different based on the books, but nevertheless, I think ultimately we worship the same Lord. Anyway, just saying, here's a text for you. This is a text. I don't like to use this text very much, but I think this is a perfect fit for it. And the LGBT community got to understand something. Like when the Christians are not standing the Islamic faith, I think a lot of Christians are capitulating and surrendering and preaching gay stuff in their churches. Shame on us, but the Islamic faith is doing what many Christians should have been doing. It says this, an evil man seeketh only rebellion. Look what God will do when you have a group of people, an evil men, and this is speaking generally, okay? An evil man seeketh only rebellion. You're determined to rebel against God. Look what he does. Therefore, a cruel messenger shall be sent against him. You meditate on that a little bit. You meditate on that. God will always do that. He does that. Every time evil is arising to the surface, God always have an opposer. He always has some group, some people, some messenger, some prophet. Some men will rise. Pharaoh was acting up. There comes Moses. Ahab was acting up. There shows Elijah. When the king of Hezekiah was acting up, there's Jeremiah. When Babylon and what's his name, Nebuchadnezzar started doing his idolatry and starting to find ways to get worship, who did God send? He sent Daniel, Shadrach, Mishael, Hazar. What I'm trying to say, wherever there is evil and corruption and rebellion, be aware, God will send a messenger. He always does. he always have an opposition to the corruption and the evil that is in the world. And thank God for that. And I think the Islamic faith, they're picking up where a lot of us as Christians are failing. I'm telling you, we are capitulating. We are sugarcoating the gospel. We playing here. Love is love. Love is love. We are standing for nothing. And here's a group of people coming from the East playing that game. Like, you better keep that stuff away from us. Reading from a different book. But they have a heart, my friend. They have a heart. They believe what they believe. And they go on to tell the Christians, this is how it's done. And I will sit back and say, man, y'all, we need to get our act together. We can learn something from them. You don't have to agree with their theology. We can argue against that all day long. But one thing I give them respect for, they believe what they believe, and they are bold in their faith. No wonder why they're growing so fast, so much faster than the Christian faith. And I'm telling you, God is doing something with the Islamic faith. Don't sleep on these people. You better give them some godly respect. I'm not saying go be converted. Go follow. You do what you want to do. I'm sticking with Jesus. But at the same time, I'm going to listen. I'm going to pay attention to that group of people. Understand there is a work to be done by their hands. The Lord is using them. Just saying. Just saying. Like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. a cruel messenger shall be set against a rebellious man. Here. Thank you for listening. Put your comment below. For those of you who are Islamic faith, put your thought and perspective below. Thank you for what you do. I love you, man. I love you. I think the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Have a good one. Bye.